I dress this way? A crazy drag queen, or perhaps you're gay? Is there a point to all these fancy clothes? With all these buckles from your head down to your toes? It's very simple, but I'm just another girl. It's not so easy, but I'm giving it a whirl. Is there something that you're trying to prove? With all the makeup and the way you move, are you looking for some sympathy? No, I'm trying to be the best girl I can be. It's very simple, but I'm just another girl. It's not so easy, but I'm giving it a whirl. Like my martini stride, cosmos I won't deny. Smoke those long cigarettes. Thank God I'm not dead yet. Done all these crazy things, short of a wedding ring. Just love, love, love,
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Callista Solon, and you're watching nlcTrans. Tonight I'm here with my dear friend and co-host, Tara Alexander. Anyway, we have some B-roll for you later, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to get to that.
We did that.
Yeah. But we're going to get to that in a little bit. In the meantime, we have a few things to talk about. And, Tara and I were talking about some of this just before the show, about the Smith College thing, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But there were some things going on. I wanted, before I get too far, and while you're doing that thing,
That thing.
I just wanted
looking for more details on the stuff that we were going to talk about.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know I just got this today. This is from the Alliance for Living. Apparently, they're having an annual plant sale at Kentford Farm, and this is Saturday, May 18th. And this is to benefit the Alliance for Living. This is Kentford Farm, which is 297 New London Turnpike, Stonington. I'm not familiar with the place myself, but it's a good cause. So go buy some plants. I like plants. Plants are a good thing. Go buy plants and benefit the. And we'll remind you again before that, obviously, but that's coming up. Also, I believe next Wednesday,
March 27th.
Yeah.
Just pulling that up.
Which I think it's, at 7:30 or
6:15 to 7:30 at the New London Public Library is an organizational meeting for the New London Pride Festival.
Right.
You have to get there before 7 o'clock because the doors get closed at 7. But if you get there before 7, 6:15 preferably, in the community room on the lower level. You can contact Constance Christofik if you have any questions. She writes, your help is needed to create a dynamic event on the city pier, in addition to a few smaller events throughout the year, seeking committee members and community support to make this a successful event that is part of New London's annual calendar.
Cool.
You don't have to be GLBTQSIR. Gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, and allies are all encouraged to attend. Local business owners and community leaders are also encouraged to show their support.
Yeah.
Wednesday, March 27th, so next Wednesday. 6:15, New London Public Library, community room on the lower level.
Yeah. We'll remind you next week, but it'll be sort of too late.
Well, by the time we're on, the doors will have locked.
Yes. So, yeah, anyway, so that's a week from tonight. Anyway, those two things, upcoming events, and some other things. Here's one, I don't know if you saw this, but I suspect you are going to get a kick out of this one. I'm sure you've seen it. This one is about a nonprofit that has unveiled a rainbow house across the street, or beside the Westboro Baptist Church.
Oh, really? You're right. I would get a kick out of that.
And the house is rainbow colored. You probably can't see that on the screen, but
well, yeah, you probably can actually if you hold that up.
Yeah.
You can see that the colors start here. They painted the whole side of the house
It's cool. The house is arranged. It's like a siding, like shakes, not shakes.
Siding. Clapboard.
And it's each one is a different shade, and it's a rainbow. It's very cool. Anyway, I'm going to read this to you quickly. But this is from the Advocate. Members of the anti-gay Westboro Baptist Church woke up to a Technicolor surprise this morning when a progressive nonprofit began painting a house directly across the street from Westboro's compound in the bright, bold colors of the rainbow flag. It is, it's nice. 6 months ago, Planting Peace, that's the name of the nonprofit, historically dedicated to environmental conservation, bought the house at 1200 Southwest Orleans Street in Topeka, directly across the street from a series of homes owned by Westboro members and the church itself, known as the Westboro Compound. Yeah, naming your place a compound just... Anyway,
Google compound, and I think the majority of things you're going to hit have law enforcement connotations.
I feel the Westboro Baptist Church is the poster child that's pushing inequality. Planting Peace founder Aaron Jackson told The Advocate, "So I thought the best place to start was to counter the Westboro Baptist Church's message." Jackson has been living in the house for the past month and a half with the intent to turn it into the Equality House, a drop-in center that will support a variety of LGBT and anti-bullying efforts. Before that can happen, though, Jackson says he and his colleagues at Planting Peace want to raise $1 million to support existing equality and anti-bullying programs. Planting Peace has launched a CrowdRise page to support that. I'm not sure.
Crowdsource?
No, it's just CrowdRise.
Well, it's probably a form of crowdsourcing.
Not sure what that is, but okay. Yeah, you can explain that. Page to support that goal, where the team has already raised more than $10,000. Anyway, very cool. So I just love that. It's across from the Westboro Baptist Church. And it's a beautiful rainbow painted house. I love it. Anyway, I got to kick out. We don't much care for the Westboro Baptist Church, folks, and they are a hate group.
They are classified as a hate group, and the Supreme Court continues to uphold their right to hate. Yeah. So long as they don't do something to people.
Yeah.
They can preach whatever they want to preach. It's protected by the First Amendment.
Anyway,
they can even claim it's in the name of religion.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not well liked, I don't think. Anybody that's familiar with them, I think, will understand that. They don't have much of a following in these parts, I'm afraid.
No, actually, I think their following is about 14 people, and it's mostly family and the people they married.
Yeah. Anyway, here's the thing about that Tara and I were talking about, and this was an interesting thing. This was about Smith College up in Northampton. This was also from The Advocate. A female transgender high school senior who applied to Smith College, a women's college, was told she did not qualify to attend because she is not legally recognized as female in her home state of Connecticut. Calliope Wong's application, I love that name, Calliope, application and fee were returned to her earlier this month, and in a letter to Wong, Smith's Dean of Admission, Deborah Shaver, told Wong that Smith is a women's college, which means that undergraduate applicants to Smith must be female at the time of admission. Smith College does have protocol to welcome transgender students, only as long as they are legally identified as female at the time of admission. The school's policy also accepts transgender men if they transition after they become students. Right, that makes sense. I am not a rapist, I am not a criminal, and it is not fair to assume that I am such a person, Wong wrote on her blog. Thing is, I'm a girl who that's kind of, okay, that's bizarre the way this is written, but wants her fair shot at Smith. There's one too many wants in this article.
There's probably a pause in there.
Yeah.
Just want, whatever.
Yeah. Well, Wong told the Keystone Student Voice that she has identified as female throughout her adolescence. Her FAFSA, that's Free Application for Federal Student Aid, identifies Wong as male. To be recognized as female in Connecticut, Wong would have to undergo sexual confirmation surgery, a costly and complicated procedure for a teenager. Certainly that's true. And yeah, obviously.
Well, it's only in part true.
That it's complicated and costly.
No, well, yes, that part is true.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I was referring to as far as being recognized as female. And we were talking about this before because they were
living here in Connecticut. Even though this is now a national story, living here in Connecticut, we have to sort of uphold the Connecticut truth. It's not. If this individual, if Calliope wanted to go get her state ID to read female, she could do it. It's not that hard. The issue here is you're applying for federal student aid.
Right.
So your federal student aid application is what's listing you as male,
and that's
not your Connecticut state ID. It's not that you're not recognized by Connecticut as male or female. It's your federal application.
And that's what they saw, and that's why they
and that's why
rejected
because they only accept female students, cis or trans female, and the FAFSA application was returned because it had an M on it.
Right.
And at the federal level, to change your Social Security, you would need expensive, complicated, risky surgery. But the state of Connecticut is not what's standing in her way.
Right, yeah. Certainly that's true. Yeah, it's funny. Actually, I can tell you that my experience with the Social Security Administration was, they wanted to know that you'd have the surgery, but they were actually very nice about the whole thing. Interestingly, having gone through a lot of that, getting all sorts of stuff changed, some of it was surprisingly easy. Some of it was very difficult. The IRS, for instance, they were not a problem. They didn't care. We'll change it, whatever you want. Social Security wasn't quite as easy, although, like I said, they were very nice about it. Some of the other things, and like even the passport. Of course, at the time that I applied, I went to all that trouble to get the passport. Right after I had my surgery and got the passport changed, they changed the rules on that one. But some of it, and dealing with the FAA was funny because parts of the FAA were very easy and parts weren't. So. Kind of strange, but anyway. So it's the sort of the federal thing that got in the way of Calliope's.
Yeah, and this is a different article about it where this author goes on to, I'm happy to say, elaborate the situation further. Talking about as Calliope eloquently explains on her blog, changing all legal documents from male to female is nearly impossible for a 17 or 18-year-old trans woman. Changing one's name and the gender on one's passport and driver's license can be done with relative ease in Connecticut, Calliope's home state, and in Massachusetts, where Smith College is located. Name changes are granted fairly freely, and gender changes require a letter of recommendation from a health care provider, attesting that the applicant's current enrollment in a program that meets the WPATH standards of care. That's the World Professional Association of Transgender Health. They're the ones who maintain the standards of care for transgender transitions. A set of guidelines outlining therapy for individuals planning to transition. Though obstacles themselves, supportive parents, and a great deal of time, such changes are far from impossible. However, changing the legal sex on one's birth certificate is a different story. And what they don't cover here is your Social Security is a different story. It's not that the Social Security is difficult, but it is a higher bar. The federal paperwork is a higher bar. Birth certificates are state managed, but because of the seemingly immutable nature of your birth, they're reluctant to make changes that aren't addendums to your birth certificate. And also correctly points out that not all trans women are ready for surgery at 17 or 18. Many may not even feel the need for genital surgery of any kind. And genital surgery, sex confirmation surgery, is notoriously expensive, several tens of thousands of dollars, and many trans women simply cannot afford to pay for the vaginoplasty at this point in their lives.
Yeah.
You know, and we've had, when Stacy was on, she used to tell her story how she knew she needed to get out of the South, get an education, and get a good paying job, because those were required for her to actually be able to afford her transition.
Yeah.
Says Smith does not ask for verification that applicants are female, no birth certificate, passport, etc. You must just check the female box on the common application. The only time admissions would ask about the sex of the applicant would be if there was an inconsistent use of pronouns throughout the application, including in reference letters. And that's a statement by Mac Hamilton, the Smith Student Government Association Diversity Chair, on the after talking to the college's dean.
Right.
So there's it's a little sensational, but there's definitely more going on here.
Right.
Being trans in Connecticut, it really strikes home when you start reading all the comments after the story about what a terrible state it is and how could you be discriminating against this girl. And I do feel for her, but there's a process to get your documentation changed, and Smith College is correctly a women's college. They're open to any women, whether they be born natally female, cisgendered, or transgendered female, but the forms have to say female.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what's going on. We actually have a phone call, I believe.
Phone line 1.
Which we will take. Good evening, nlcTrans. You're on the air.
Hi, ladies. How are you? This is John.
Hey, John.
I've been trying to catch your show, and I'm so glad I caught tonight.
You should come on the show.
Yeah, and I just saw where you were promoting the event at the
next Wednesday.
Yep.
Start Gay Pride.
Yep.
Or start the process.
Right. Okay, we got some feedback there.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Did we lose you?
Yeah, it's better. Just speak up a bit.
Okay.
Sure. I wanted to tell you that there is a great new musical at the Spirit of Broadway called Convenience.
Convenience.
And it's playing till April 7th.
Okay.
And what it is about how families don't often communicate.
Yeah.
And it's with a gay son and mother.
Oh.
And how they don't know about each other's lives. And on March 29th, there's going to be a LGBT night at the Spirit of Broadway at 8 o'clock.
Oh, cool. So that's Friday, next Friday.
Yeah, next Friday, Good Friday.
Cool.
It's at 8 o'clock.
It'll be a Good Friday.
I'll give you the phone number if anybody is interested in ordering tickets.
Sure.
It's 860-886-2378.
886-2378.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 12.
Cool. Yeah,
it's a musical. It's fabulous.
Yeah, we love the Spirit of Broadway. Brett Bernardini has always been a really good guy, and we love going over there. It's
well, good.
It's a cool place.
You ladies will come because I have not seen you.
Yeah, it would be very nice to see you.
Something to believe in. 2013.
We should get you on the show.
It starts at 8 o'clock. There's a cocktail reception at 7:30. It's all included in the price. Tickets are $32.
Oh, that's not bad.
No,
that's the Spirit of Broadway thing.
Yeah.
Spirit of Broadway. It's called Convenience.
Convenience. Very cool.
It runs to April 7th, but the 29th of March is GLBT night.
That is very cool.
So if one of you can call me at work tomorrow, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got your phone number from last week. It's just been.
That's right. There was
crazy.
Okay, yeah. You've got that written down somewhere.
It's at home, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Great.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you're continuing with the trans program. Terrific.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for calling.
All right, have a good night.
You too.
Convenience. There we go.
Bye-bye. Oh.
A musical about family secrets and the ties that bind. Convenience by Greg Coffin is a sung-through musical about family, the ties that bind, and the ones we struggle to break. A single mom and her estranged 26-year-old son have news for each other, but neither can find the words nor the courage. Liz can't tell her son, Vince, that she's remarrying and moving away. Vince is afraid of how Liz will react when he tells her about his boyfriend. During one funny, awkward, touching moment, they come to realize what so many families discover. The things they feared would tear them apart and end up bringing them closer together. A mother and a son learn from their broken past and the promise of a different future that they can walk through a doorway without slamming it shut forever.
Wow, that's nice. Very cool. That's a cool theater too. It's a tiny little theater. I love it.
It's a 72, 76 seat
Yeah, it's very cozy.
shadow box theater
Yeah, it's very
in
cozy.
a renovated old Norwich firehouse.
Yep.
Some beautiful architecture.
Yeah. No bad seats. You're like right on top of the performance.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's well, yes. If you're not familiar with what a shadow box theater is, that's you sit right around the actual the
Yeah.
play takes place in the middle of the.
Yeah.
It's not like the big theaters where you're sitting
Yeah. Yeah.
away. There's like 3 rows of seats and they wrap around 3 sides, and it's
Cool.
it's great.
But yeah, so that's a very cool thing. Anyway, okay. So before we run out of time, what else we've got?
We've got B-roll.
We've got B-roll. Is it, how long is our B-roll?
16 minutes, I believe.
Okay, so we've got a couple minutes.
16:29.
Yeah. I don't know what you have on your screen there. You've probably got the same stuff that I do.
Yeah, but you've actually looked at them.
Okay, well, this one was the one about the gay Somali teen. I don't know a lot about this story, except this is something I pulled off the internet. Somalia is a rough place, certainly. Anyway, I'll read this to you. A gay teenager in Somalia was reportedly stoned to death as punishment for being gay by Islamic rebels while villagers were forced to watch. According to Identity Kenya, Muhammad Ali Bashi, who was 18 years old, was buried in the ground up to his chest and assaulted with rocks Friday in Barawe, about 50 miles from Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. The group reportedly tied to the murderous attack was Al-Shabaab, which is linked to Al-Qaeda. Bashir was charged with sodomy along with another man who had also been charged with murder, and I don't know anything about the rest of that. They both admitted to their crimes, and the man who admitted to murder was sentenced by a judge to be shot to death. However, Bashir was stoned to death because of his sexual act. Pretty awful.
So being gay,
Yeah.
you
Was
get
your-
stoned to death.
Yeah.
But if you commit murder, it's a real quick bullet.
Yeah, yeah. You get shot if you commit murder, but if you're gay, you get stoned to death. Wow. So the moral there, I guess, is they consider being gay a worse crime than being a murderer. I don't know. But anyway, I thought that was pretty awful. We still hear about stuff like this. I mean, obviously we have a lot of often wonderful stories to tell you, and there's a lot of really great things going on, but once in a while you see something like this, it's just, it's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
But anyway, what else have we got? I told you about the rainbow house. I love the rainbow house.
No, well, I keep trying to open up an article here, but it keeps crashing.
It's great.
Just like any other computer.
Yeah.
Every time I open that page, it crashes, so. Oh well, try again.
Yeah. Anyway, this was one about ENDA, which is the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. This is another one I pulled off the web. Anyway, Congress members have asked President Barack Obama to sign an executive order prohibiting federal contractors from discriminating in the workplace based on sexual orientation or gender identity. 110 members of Congress signed the open letter sent to the President Wednesday. Though Obama has been a long supporter of the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which would prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity, he has not indicated that he would sign an executive order. Last year, a group of 72 House members sent a similar letter to the President. However, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney said the President did not believe an executive order would be the ideal way to deal with the lack of a non-discrimination policy. Carney said Obama was committed to a lasting and comprehensive non-discrimination protection, and we plan to pursue a number of strategies to attain that goal. Though President Lyndon Johnson's executive order banning discrimination by federal contractors on the basis of gender, race, religion has been in effect since 1965, President Obama has expressed his preference for Congress, including the Republican majority House, to pass ENDA. And yeah, ENDA would be, obviously, we'd like to see ENDA happen. We've made progress. Certainly, in the state of Connecticut, we've made progress, and on a federal level, ENDA would be a really good thing. So we'll see what happens there. But anyway, that's got one other little tidbit here, which probably doesn't matter to much to us up in this neck of the woods, but it's always good to hear. This is about New Mexico.
Okay.
This was also off the net. New Mexico, nicknamed a land of enchantment, I believe it says that on the license plate, is also a land of equality for same-sex couples, at least in the opinion of several Santa Fe city officials. And Santa Fe, there's something very romantic about Santa Fe. It's apparently a very nice place.
You like those sainted places.
Yeah, I do. But Santa Fe is a nice place. Anyway, I digress. The city's yes, I know. The city's mayor and other leaders held a press conference today to announce that they believe nothing in state law prevents the issuance of marriage licenses to gay couples, and they want to pass a resolution urging county clerks to begin granting the licenses immediately. It's time to push this issue, Mayor David Cross said at the event, where he was joined by City Council member Patty Bushy and City Attorney Gina Zamora. Zamora and his staff recently prepared a legal opinion stating, New Mexico's statutory definition of marriage is gender neutral, since New Mexico does not define marriage as between a man and a woman, and since New Mexico does not prohibit same-sex marriage is permitted in New Mexico. Very, very cool.
Seems
Good
like
for-
simple
good
enough
for them.
logic.
Yeah, and good for them. So, that's obviously, and we've said this before, whether you like this or not, this is a battle that we will win.
Just takes time.
It's just a matter of time, and we'll all eventually look back at this and say, what the hell? Why did it take so long? But, it's just, obvious, sort of equality. It's pretty simple stuff. Anyway.
So here's an interesting story.
Well, there you go.
Not a sport that you probably follow, but mixed martial arts fighter Fallon Fox. In a new interview with Outsport's Sid Ziegler, admits she has some long-standing reservations about coming forward. She's trans.
Yeah.
For years I've known at some point it's very likely the shoe would drop. Maybe someone would guess that I'm trans, maybe they would know me from my life before I transitioned. I've been waiting for that phone call to happen, and Saturday night it happened. Part of her reluctance to come out has a lot to do with concerns over who she'll be perceived by her fellow athletes as, saying that people have, quote, seen me as a woman. She says, I'm technically, legally, physically, and mentally female. Everything about me is female. She says, before adding, I happen to fall into the transgender category, but I rather describe myself as a woman first and a transsexual woman second. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
She tells Ziegler she underwent gender reassignment surgery along with a supplemental hormone therapy 6 years ago, several years after her father, who was convinced she was a confused gay man, put her in conversion therapy, where she notes she was treated by a reparative therapist who tried to convince her that she was in fact gay so that he could turn her into a heterosexual man.
Right.
As Sports Illustrated points out, Fox is currently scheduled to fight again for the Championship Fighting Alliance 10 in Coral Gables, Florida on April 20th, but her license approval is now under investigation with Florida's Department of Business and Professional Regulation now that she's come out as transgender.
Wow.
Fox's revelation follows that of mixed martial artist Liz Carmouche, a former Marine who fought in the history-making first female matchup of the Ultimate Fighting Championship on February 23rd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And then this one, if I can get it to scroll. This is, you probably saw this in the news somewhere. Coy Mathis, we talked about this, I think, once before.
Yeah.
Colorado transgender first grader has been stirring up debate over anti-discrimination laws since her elementary school stopped letting her use the girls' bathroom. And I think that's the important part is, you know, stopped letting her use the girls' bathroom.
Yeah.
She had been using the girls' bathroom, and her parents have temporarily pulled her from school until they can hopefully try to get the school to understand that being able to use the girls' bathroom is a very important part of her development because it's helping her affirm that people know she's a girl.
Yeah.
Well, apparently the school doesn't want to mediate.
Oh, really? Wow. That's too bad.
Colorado is one of the 16 states across the country that has anti-discrimination law that protects transgender people. Of course, the downside to this statement is that there are another 24 states that don't have any protections for transgender people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and not only does it say that you can't discriminate, it says you can't discriminate in places like schools or bathrooms. So yeah, we did talk about this before. It's unlikely on any kind of challenge that'll stand up.
Yeah. Anyway.
There was also a note here of an Oregon pizza shop who stirred up some community controversy when they categorized one of their menu items as tranny sticks.
Tranny sticks.
Yes. It was a type of breadstick. They were calling them tranny sticks. And as soon as they got wind of the community uproar, they apologized and changed their menus. It seems to have been, in the article I read here, it seems to have been innocent ignorance of tripping over something. But yeah, it was...
Okay.
The remorse shown by the owners has gained them some new customers. Lonesome's Pizza in Oregon. Thanks for stepping up, apologizing, and making things right. Last year, clothing and home furnishing retailer Urban Outfitter came under a similar fire from LGBT advocates after reportedly selling a greeting card some deemed transphobic. Reddy says, what's most important to get across is that we are really sorry to all the transgender community. We're a little slow on the uptake, no question, but we're learning.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're going to run out of time if we got, what, 16 minutes?
Yeah, you're right. We'll be able to come back and say goodbye.
Yeah.
So tonight's TED Talks are focusing on the science side of things.
Cool.
And sort of brain science and how we see ourselves as human beings. Not the culinary side of brain science. So.
Okay.
I would like to tell you all that you are all actually cyborgs, but not the cyborgs that you think. You're not RoboCop and you're not Terminator, but you're cyborgs every time you look at a computer screen or use one of your cell phone devices. So what's a good definition for cyborg? Well, traditional definition is an organism to which exogenous components have been added for the purpose of adapting to new environments. That came from a 1960 paper on space travel, because if you think about it, space is pretty awkward. People aren't supposed to be there. But humans are curious, and they like to add things to their bodies so that they can go to the Alps one day and then become a fish in the sea the next. So let's look at the concept of traditional anthropology. Somebody goes to another country, says how fascinating these people are, how interesting their tools are, how curious their culture is, and then they write a paper and maybe a few other anthropologists read it and we think it's very exotic. Well, what's happening is that we've suddenly found a new species. I, as a cyborg anthropologist, have suddenly said, oh wow, now suddenly we're a new form of Homo sapiens, and look at these fascinating cultures, and look at these curious rituals that everybody is doing around this technology. They're clicking on things and staring at screens. Now, there's a reason why I study this versus traditional anthropology, and the reason is that tool use in the beginning, for thousands and thousands of years, everything has been a physical modification of self. It has helped us to extend our physical selves, go faster, hit things harder, and there's been a limit on that. But now what we're looking at is not an extension of the physical self, but an extension of the mental self. And because of that, we're able to travel faster, communicate differently. And the other thing that happens is that we're all carrying around little Mary Poppins technology. We can put anything we want into it, and it doesn't get heavier, and then we can take anything out. What does the inside of your computer actually look like? Well, if you print it out, it looks like 1,000 pounds of material that you're carrying around all the time. And if you actually lose that information, it means that you suddenly have this loss in your mind, that you suddenly feel like something's missing, except you aren't able to see it, so it feels like a very strange emotion. The other thing that happens is that you have a second self. Whether you like it or not, you're starting to show up online, and people are interacting with your second self when you're not there. And so you have to be careful about, leaving your front lawn open, which is basically your Facebook wall, so that, people don't write on it in the middle of the night, because it's very much the equivalent. And suddenly we have to start to maintain our second self. You have to present yourself in digital life in a similar way that you would in your analog life. So in the same way that you wake up, take a shower, and get dressed, you have to learn to do that for your digital self. And the problem is that a lot of people now, especially adolescents, have to go through two adolescences. They have to go through their primary one that's already awkward, and then they have to go through their second self's adolescence. And that's even more awkward because there's an actual kind of history of what they've gone through online. And anybody coming in new to technology is an adolescent online right now. And so it's very awkward, and it's very difficult for them to do those things. So when I was little, my dad would sit me down at night and he would say, I'm going to teach you about time and space in the future. And I said, great. And he said one day, what's the shortest distance between 2 points? And I said, well, that's a straight line. You told me that yesterday. I thought it was very clever. He said, no, no, no. Here's a better way. He took a piece of paper, drew A and B on one side and the other, and folded them together. So where A and B touched, and he said, that is the shortest distance between 2 points. And I said, Dad, how do you do that? He said, well, you just bend time and space. It takes an awful lot of energy, and that's just how you do it. And I said, I want to do that. And he said, well, okay. And so when I went to sleep for the next 10 or 20 years, I was thinking at night, I want to be the first person to create a wormhole, to make things accelerate faster, and I want to make a time machine. I was always sending messages to my future self and using tape recorders. But then what I realized when I went to college is that technology doesn't just get adopted because it works. It gets adopted because people use it, and it's made for humans. So I started studying anthropology. And when I was writing my thesis on cell phones, I realized that everyone was carrying around wormholes in their pocket. They weren't physically transporting themselves. They were mentally transporting themselves. They would click on a button, and they would be connected as A to B immediately. And I thought, oh, wow, I found it. This is great. So over time and space have compressed because of this. You can stand on one side of the world, whisper something, and be heard on the other. One of the other ideas that comes around is that you have a different type of time on every single device that you use. Every single browser tab gives you a different type of time. And because of that, you start to dig around for your external memories. Where did you leave them? So now we're all these paleontologists that are digging for things that we've lost on our external brains that we're carrying around in our pockets. And that incites a sort of panic architecture. Oh no, where's this thing? It's coming in. We're all I Love Lucy on a great assembly line of information, and we can't keep up. And so what happens is when we bring all of that into the social space, we end up checking our phones all the time. So we have this sort of thing called ambient intimacy. It's not that we're always connected to everybody, but at any time we can connect to anyone we want. And if you were able to print out everybody in your cell phone, the room would be very crowded. These are all the people that you have access to right now. In general, all of these people, all your friends and family that you can connect to. And so there are some psychological effects that happen with this. What I'm really worried about is that people aren't taking time for mental reflection anymore, and that they aren't slowing down and stopping being around all those people in the room all the time that are trying to compete for their attention on the simultaneous time interfaces, paleontology, and panic architecture. They're not just sitting there. And really, when you have no external input, that is the time when there's a creation of self, when you can do long-term planning, when you can try and figure out who you really are. And then once you do that, you can figure out how to present your second self in a legitimate way, instead of just dealing with everything as it comes in and, oh, I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to do this. And so this is very important. I'm really worried that especially kids today, they're not going to be dealing with this downtime, that they have an instantaneous button-clicking culture, and that everything comes to them, and that they become very excited about it and very addicted to it. So if you think about it, the world hasn't stopped either. It has its own external prosthetic devices. And these devices are helping us all to communicate and interact with each other. But when you actually visualize it, all the connections that we're doing right now, this is an image of the mapping of the internet. It doesn't look technological. It actually looks very organic. This is the first time in the entire history of humanity that we've connected in this way. And it's not that machines are taking over. It's that they're helping us to be more human, helping us to connect with each other. The most successful technology gets out of the way and helps us live our lives. And really, it ends up being more human than technology because we're co-creating each other all the time. And so this is the important point that I like to study. Things are beautiful, that it's still human connection. It's just done in a different way. We're just increasing our humanness and our ability to connect with each other, regardless of geography. So that's why I study cyborg anthropology. Thank you.
One of the biggest challenges in computer graphics has been able to create a photoreal digital human face. And one of the reasons that's so difficult is that unlike aliens and dinosaurs, we look at human faces every day. They're very important to how we communicate with each other. And as a result, we're tuned into the subtlest things that could possibly be wrong with a computer rendering in order to believe whether these things are realistic. And what I'm going to do in the next 5 minutes is take you through a process where we tried to create a reasonably photorealistic computer-generated face using some computer graphics technology we've developed, and also some collaborators at a company called Image Metrics. And we're going to try to do a photoreal face of an actress named Emily O'Brien, who's right there. And that's actually a completely computer-generated rendering of her face, and by the end of the talk, we're going to see it move. The way that we did this is we tried to start with Emily herself, who was gracious enough to come to our laboratory in Marina del Rey and sit for a session in Light Stage 5. This is a face scanning sphere with 156 white LEDs all around that allow us to photograph her in a series of very controlled illumination conditions. And the lighting that we use these days looks something like this. We shoot all of these photographs in about 3 seconds, and we basically capture enough information with video projector patterns that drape over the contours of her face and different principal directions of light from the light stage to figure out both the coarse scale and the fine scale detail of her face. If we zoom in on this photograph right here, you can see it's a really nice photograph to have of her because she's lit from absolutely everywhere at the same time to get a nice image of her facial texture. And in addition, we've actually used polarizers on all the lights. Just like polarized sunglasses can block the glare off of the road, polarizers can block the shine off of the skin so we don't get all those specular reflections to take this map. Now, if we turn the polarizers around just a little bit, we can actually bring that specular reflection of the skin back in. And you can see she looks kind of shiny and oily at this point. And if you take the difference between these two images here, you can get an image lit from the entire sphere of light of just the shine off of Emily's skin. I don't think any photograph like this had ever been taken before we had done this. And this is very important light to capture because this is the light that reflects off of the first surface of the skin. It doesn't get underneath the translucent layers of the skin and blur out. And as a result, it's a very good cue to the detailed shape of the skin pore structure and all of the fine wrinkles that all of us have, the things that actually make us look like real humans. So if we use information that comes off of the specular reflection, We can go from a traditional face scan that might have the gross contours of the face and the basic shape and augment it with information that puts in all of that skin pore structure and fine wrinkles. And even more importantly, since this is a photometric process that only takes 3 seconds to capture, we can shoot Emily in just part of an afternoon in many different facial poses and different facial expressions. So here you can see her moving her eyes around, moving her mouth around, and these we're actually going to use to create a photoreal digital character. So if you take a look at these scans that we have of Emily, you can see that the human face does an enormous amount of amazing things as it goes into different facial expressions. You can see things, not only the base shape changes, but all sorts of different skin buckling and skin wrinkling occurs. You can see that the skin pore structure changes enormously from stretched skin pores to the regular skin texture. You can see the furrows in the brow and how the microstructure changes there. You can see muscles pulling down at flesh to bring her eyebrows down, or muscles bulging in her forehead when she winces like that. And in addition to this kind of high-resolution geometry, since it's all captured with cameras, we get a great texture map to use for the face. And by looking at how the different color channels of the illumination, the red and the green and the blue, diffuse the light differently, we can come up with a way of shading the skin in the computer that instead of looking like a plaster mannequin, actually looks like it's made out of living human flesh. And this is what we used to give to the company Image Metrics to create a rigged digital version of Emily. We're just seeing the coarse scale geometry here, but they basically created a digital puppet of her where you can pull on these various strings and it actually moves her face in ways that are completely consistent with the scans that we took. In addition to the coarse scale geometry, they also used all of that detail to create a set of what are called displacement maps that animate as well. These are the displacement maps here, and you can see those different wrinkles actually show up as she animates. So the next process was then to animate her. We actually used one of her own performances to provide the source data. So by analyzing this video with computer vision techniques, they were able to drive the facial rig with the computer-generated performance. So what you're going to see now, after this, is a completely photoreal digital face. We can turn the volume up a little bit if that's available.
Image Metrics is a markerless, performance-driven animation company. We specialize in high-quality facial animation for video games and films. Image Metrics is a markerless, performance-driven animation company. We specialize in high-quality facial animation for video games and films.
So if we break that down into layers, here's that diffuse component we saw on the first slide. Here's the specular component animating. You can see all the wrinkles happening there. And there's the underlying wireframe mesh. And that's Emily herself. Now, where are we going with this here? We've actually gone a little bit beyond light stage 5. This is light stage 6, and we're looking at taking this technology and applying it to whole human bodies. This is Bruce Lahman, one of our researchers in the group, who graciously agreed to get captured running in the light stage. And let's take a look at a computer-generated version of Bruce running in a new environment. And thank you very much.
I'm a designer and an educator. I'm a multitasking person, and I push my students to fly through a very creative multitasking design process. But how efficient is really this multitasking? Let's consider for a while the option of monotasking. A couple of examples. Look at that. This is my multitasking activity result. So trying to cook, answering the phone, writing SMS, and maybe uploading some pictures about this awesome barbecue. So someone tell us the story about supertaskers. So these 2% of people who are able to control multitasking environment. But what about ourselves? And what about our reality? When's the last time you really enjoy just the voice of your friend? So this is a project I'm working on, and this is a series of front covers to downgrade our super, hyper, to downgrade our super hyper mobile phones into the essence of their function. Another example, have you never been to Venice? How beautiful it is to lost ourselves in this little street on the island. But our multitasking reality is pretty different and full of tons of information. So what about something like that to rediscover our sense of adventure? I know that could sound pretty weird to speak about mono when the numbers of possibilities is so huge. But I push you to consider the option of focus on just one task, or maybe turning your digital senses totally off. So nowadays, everyone could produce his mono product. Why not? So find your monotask spot within the multitasking world. Thank you.
Well, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. I love his mustache. That was a great mustache. Anyway, and I love the monolith. We are actually
Totally out of time.
totally out of time, so we actually have to go. But I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all again next week. Bye-bye.
I could sit around